Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam Tour of 2025. Arguably one of the more controversial events that may or may not have started, would have had all of its players or not, but drama is past us. There has been some resolution. All the players have made it here to the Weissenhaus Resort, north of Hamburg in Germany, 1.5 hours, and it's going to be an exciting one. Here's the format. The players are playing Fischer Random Chess, Chess 960, Chess 9LX, like whatever name you want to attach to it. What that means is 10 minutes before every single game, they have a lottery draw of 959 starting positions because they removed the standard chess one. And they have 10 minutes to prepare for the game. They can prepare together or solo, and then they play. There are 10 players. You will learn about all of them in this recap. And they play 9 games against each other. The 9 games are rapid. So it's 10 minutes, and that determines your seeding. The top 8 players make it to a knockout. The top 2 players leave, which is actually kind of insane. Last time it was 8 players in a round robin, and everybody made it into the knockout. So there's rules changing kind of as we go. It's not a bad thing. It's just they're learning the format of the event and trying to make it better and more exciting. I already know that the next event in April will be 12 players and more qualifying players and qualification spots available. So you will be asking, where's Prague? Where's Hans Niemann? Where are all your favorite players? They will have a chance to qualify. Now, today's games were insanely exciting. The games start at 1 p.m. local time, and I'm going to be live on set with Naroditsky, Tanya Sachdev. We have David Howell. We have James Dash, in case you don't know him, League of Legends caster. He's amazing as well. So let's jump into the games today. We actually got things going with one of the more ridiculous first-round matchups of a tournament that's ever been seen, which is Magnus versus Hikaru, like as if the entire thing wasn't scripted and rigged. And by the way, Magnus will play Gukesh in the final round of the round robin, which is tomorrow. So we had 5 games today, then I will show you the results, and it's going to be a great time. I have a lot of games to show, so I will go kind of quickly. Openings don't really matter, because you and I don't know them anyway, so we're not going to pretend to know them. So you have a position to start off with 2 bishops and 2 knights like this. Maybe you play for the center, maybe you play on the edge of the board. Actually, as early as move 2, Game Review gave Hikaru a question mark, which was kind of hilarious, but Hikaru's entire approach was to not allow Magnus to put his pawn to e4 and to target this bishop. Magnus then proceeded to develop his pieces toward the center and himself apparently made a mistake early on, but none of that really matters. We got a trade from Hikaru, light squared bishop for knight, and then he struck the center like this. David Howell, who was on the live broadcast, was saying he knows Magnus quite well. He was saying that the rook in the center is actually something that Magnus likes to do. He likes to somehow dart his rooks across the board. And in case you are wondering, by the way, how to castle, that rook would go this way. So you have to find the available squares for the king on short castling. And the king in this rook would castle on these 2 squares. So it's all about kind of freeing up the spaces for the pieces. But okay, none of that matters right now. From the opening, it was a very obscure position. It looked like Magnus should be slightly better because he had the traditional bishop pair. His bishop is coming in here, maybe trapping Hikaru's queen, but Hikaru struck with c5, which was a very nice move, and then he brought out his queen, and to my eye, basically had equalized and had a really nice position. And again, the computer is giving like silly question marks, but it's tough to know what the best plan is here for both colors, and we see both players kind of making some degree of a mistake. Magnus was restricting Hikaru, putting his pieces back into the corner, but he pretty quickly went a bit wrong. And after a simple trade and an advancement from Magnus on the, well, it's king side, although this is here. I don't even know how to describe these pieces. Freestyle Fischer Random is so odd. Like, this is the king side, but this idiot is on this square. Like, I have no idea how this format is supposed to be called. But anyway, I digress. After 18 moves, the position was equal, which goes to show you the difficulty in this format of actually like getting anything accomplished. And now it's like, well, Magnus can't castle. Why? Because he moved the rook that was available for that side of the board to be castling on. The only thing Magnus could do here, hypothetically, is castle to these 2 squares. But that would be a bad move because this pawn would be hanging. So, we got knight to h5, pawn to f4, and actually it was Hikaru who pretty quickly got a good position, but he had no time. He had 40 seconds. And Hikaru in recent interviews has been saying that he's old, and he can't really make critical decisions with that little time on the clock. But okay, he's been saying he's old for like a decade, so at some point, I mean, we either have to stop listening or at some point he's actually telling the truth. And yeah, I mean, with low time on the clock and the game getting very sharp and very complicated, ultimately Magnus went for this move, knight takes g7, where if queen takes knight occurs, you take this knight, and then you have attacks on the king. And Hikaru went knight c6, and d4 and went for counterplay, but it very quickly backfired, right? So he played rook a4, and instead of that, he actually probably should have gone down this way, which is, I mean, it's tough to know the difference, you know? In both situations, white king looks weird, but is somehow safe, and after rook a4 and a trade, this was not the right approach, and Hikaru was never able to regain his pawn because of the absolutely gangster move, queen g1, which simultaneously keeps an eye on this pawn, defends the first rank, and attacks the knight, and therefore attacks the king. Queen g1 basically seals the game. But Hikaru is a really, really big fish to catch, and he will slip out of your hands very easily, and within a few moves, he was just down a full piece, but Magnus wasn't able to put him away, and not only was Magnus not able to put him away, he was worse, which is unfathomable, that like he's up a bishop, but he's almost losing if Hikaru finds this maneuver to bring the rook into his position and potentially get a significant advantage despite being a bishop down. But unfortunately, as Hikaru himself said, age struck, and he is a dinosaur after all, and he blundered the position back, and Magnus was completely winning. But of course, like, I mean, this was, I don't even know how you're supposed to find your way here. Queen b1 was the wrong move. He had to go queen d1. And queen d1 is important because it keeps this option alive while defending the d6 and d4 squares, which is ultimately where Magnus planted his pieces and got a winning position. So yeah, he had to find queen d1. Queen b1 feels better because it's kind of, you know, facing the king, but that was the wrong approach. Magnus escaped with his king, gave a check, knight b5, excellent move, sacrificing the knight, sealing the game, because after this, there is rook a3 with a fork, and Hikaru resigned. So, like, we get things started with an absolutely epic back-and-forth game where, you know, there was imbalance from the second move, like complete chaos and pawn structure, and for me, the way I look at freestyle chess, or Fischer Random, or again, I have no clue what to call it, this is like going to an exotic animal exhibit, like at the zoo or something. I'm just like, wow, that's really fascinating. And then I kind of go home and like forget about it a little bit because there's nothing I can use here for myself. I mean, I'm like, all right, that was cool. Next, and that's basically what we're doing. We now go to, you know, a next game, right? Because we just have next games, we have next matchups. There are certain things that you can kind of learn, maybe like with a rook in the center, and, you know, a rook in the center, you know, you're going to kind of push the center pawns because they have backing. So you have c4 and d4, and you have the center pawns being utilized. And then we have these bishops in the corner, which could put some pressure like this. So this is Gukesh versus Alireza Firouzja. The reason why the ratings are so different, Gukesh is not 2650, this is their rapid rating. Although I think there's going to be Fischer Random ratings introduced as well. So, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of updates coming. And yes, you looked at this correctly. White can castle. Sometimes your king and rook land on two squares, and that is the way you can castle. Your king always has to be between the rooks, and white actually could have castled on the first move as well. So yeah, in this game, white castled quickly, and Alireza didn't. This is actually kind of fascinating. And sometimes when you castle too early, you sort of expect the same courtesy from your opponent, but your opponent does not provide you the same courtesy and actually starts attacking your king. So this game, Alireza takes over the initiative very quickly. He's actually just a pawn up as early as move 7, which obviously wouldn't happen in traditional chess. And from the early going, he just played for trades, because when you're up 7 pawns to 6 and you trade all the pieces, you're going to win an endgame. But, you know, as luck would have it, he then won a second pawn, and yet still Gukesh had a good position because Alireza never committed his king. So Alireza cannot castle this way. He also cannot castle that way, because under both circumstances, the king would end up being under attack. And ultimately, it was Gukesh who came back. But by the 20th move of this game, both guys had a minute, which you never see unless it was, you know, blitz chess. So both guys, you know, scrambling to find the right plans in rapid Fischer Random, rapid freestyle. And Gukesh did fight back in this game, but it was all Firouzja. I mean, he played a fantastic game. He put a lot of pressure on Gukesh, and ultimately he got a checkmate in 2, but he got it actually after blundering. Like, Gukesh blundered checkmate in 2 moves, queen d1, queen f1. But, you know, he was already under huge pressure. Like, he could have probably just pushed this a-pawn, and it would have been totally reasonable. But this one, I mean, this one was weird from the get-go. Like, it started normal, and then there was a castle, there was like g5 played, which is, you're going to kind of see more of this stuff. Like, castling early could be good, but it also could be very dangerous, right? One man who had a really, really good day is Fabiano Caruana. Without spoiling too much, by the way, we see the exact same position as the game that I just showed you. That was in the same round. In this game, both players respect each other and castled. Obviously, in the previous game, there was a level of of disrespect. That's why the castles wasn't met with the castles. But still, we got bishop f4, and obviously now there is no g5. Both kings are committed here, which means probably we are not going to be pushing a huge amount of our pawns. g3 was played, a completely different game than the one we saw previously, and Magnus decides that he's going to play for the center. It looks like all his pieces are pointed, queen, rook, bishop, like this. So we play e5 and we try to go for a trade, right? And we try to open things up, but that's the wrong move. Why is it the wrong move? Because of the incredible counterattack e4. And we never see Magnus Carlsen losing a chess game in 8 moves, but in this format, we do. We do see Magnus Carlsen losing a chess game in 8 moves. e4 is dynamite. And now Magnus spends 2 minutes because he realizes, like, why did I make this tournament? It's just like, I never get positions like this normally. Like, there's a rook here and a queen on the other side, and now I'm just losing. Like, not only is he worse, he's just straight up losing, because if you take this bishop, which is not what he did, but if you take this bishop, your queen is trapped. That's not the queen. Your queen is trapped. Like, but the worst part about this is it doesn't even matter. I'm taking this pawn. And if you take like this, I play knight takes c4, pawn takes bishop, your queen is still trapped. What? If this was a king, this would be checkmate, by the way, which is pretty heinous. And, he goes c5, but, we have d takes, a good attempt at counterplay, and he actually stabilizes the position, but now his structure forever is damaged. b4 is a nice idea by Fabi, and make no mistake, if you put me here playing white against Magnus, I would lose in like 5 moves probably, but not Fabiano. I mean, he is excellent at creating concrete problems, yeah, I don't know how Black is going to defend this position. Black's pieces are sort of totally incorrectly placed for the way the game is going to develop. Magnus tries to trade and create some counterplay, but in 15 moves, the position is hopeless. It is just completely hopeless. And this is another kind of moment. Like, why is it hopeless? Because 4 to 5 of your pieces just fell asleep. I mean, they haven't even moved. And you're just going to play d6, knight b3, c3, bc. Like, you're just going to break apart the position. So rook e7 and rook a7. And, I think maybe here you can play like c4 by Black. This is actually the move that I said during the live broadcast. I said I thought maybe something like this. Obviously, I'm better than Magnus. That's why my move was better. But joking aside, yeah, just a fantastic game from Fabi, who trades all the pieces and is going to pick this pawn up. And yeah, Magnus never even got to move this bishop. So we see a game where Magnus wins, in really, really exciting and dominant fashion against Hikaru, and at the same time can get a losing position in 8 moves, because this is just the nature of the beast. Like, sometimes when your queen is in the center of the board, you can't afford to open it up like that. Fabi beating Magnus in an awesome game. That was epic stuff. We also have a matchup here between the 2 qualifiers. So this is, again, a totally different position. I think this is round 3. At this point, Fedoseev is 0-2, and Jawahir Sindarov is 2-0. Now, the incredible thing about this matchup is that Fedoseev qualified to this tournament. He won the qualification spot. Who did he beat? Sindarov. Sindarov is number 2 in Uzbekistan behind Noirbek Abdusattorov, who we will cover in this tournament as well, a little bit later in this recap. Sindarov is having a surge right now in his career. He's young. He's been young. He was one of the youngest grandmasters ever, but he slowed down a tiny bit. But right now he's playing in the Bundesliga and he's undefeated with no draws. So he's won every single game. And they took away all his openings, so he decided to win every single game anyway. And so this is a matchup of the qualifiers. Sindarov got second place, but replaced Vishy Anand, who withdrew from the tournament. And yeah, this game was just also like very, very strange opening. Both guys opening their corner bishops, and now they're going to have to play with their pawns. And now obviously here, you develop your pawns, your knights, your bishops, or you just play a4 for God's sake. I don't even understand this move, because normally you open the bit with the bishop, but there is no bishop to open because you blocked it. But this is the best move. Now they bring their knights. And now it's a question of what's going to happen with the pawns. And I'll tell you, Sindarov is going to play f5. He's going to play f5 because, keep in mind, at this point in the event, he's won his first 2 games. Fedoseev has lost. Which is crazy, right? Fedoseev beats Sindarov to qualify to this tournament. Now he loses the first 2 rounds and Sindarov wins. It's just amazing. Like, it's all so random, and like form is totally unpredictable. And now Black is just better for some reason. Black, I guess, is better because of slightly more activity, slightly more active pawns, and maybe better play. But now you're going to watch like a Jackson Pollock painting. You're going to watch 1 orange splash, 1 red splash. Then a few moves later, you're going to get orange and more orange. Like, the computer just criticizing everything the players are doing. Yes, you just watch the king teleport to the other side of the board. That's not a glitch. That is how you castle in this format. You play 0-0. and then there's also 000, so you could have castled in both directions. And it's obviously white making a lot more orange on the board than black. And, you know, Fedoseev is unhappy with his position, so he plays queen h6, looks for play. Remember, keep in mind, he's 0-2. So 0-2, you do feel a little bit more pressure, but yeah, Sindarev just cleans up, just seals the center, and there's no way white is actually going to activate this light-squared bishop. He's going to try with bishop f3, but Sindarev, absolute dominance, locks the center, locks the king side, I suppose, the traditional king side. And here we go, bishop f8, trying to trade. He opens up the position. You best believe that pawn is going to make it down like a bowling ball. It does. AB, BC, it's check. You're going to take on b2. And Sindarev started this tournament with a 3 out of 3, which is unbelievable. Like, this is the second place qualifier. He wasn't even supposed to be here, right? And he's got 3 wins in his first 3 games. He defeats Vincent Keymer, Levon Aronian, and Vladimir Fedoseev, which is epic stuff. So just incredible. And okay, this is just the seeding round. We're not having a knockout, but last edition of this tournament, February of last year, some of you weren't even alive back then, like the young players also dominated the rapid. So if you give the young players no openings and no time on the clock, turns out they're really good at chess. But then in the classical, where you actually have to like strategize a little bit more, that's when they lost, and Magnus ultimately won the entire thing. So this was crazy to see. But okay, Magnus, you know, and speaking of, that was the same game, right? We had this. Let's see how Magnus handled it. So he actually handles it in a very similar way as Fedoseev and Sindarev with the center and then g3. But this one, he takes a totally different approach, right? Last game, we saw a4, a5, and some stuff like knight e3. Now we have f4. Vincent Keymer, the local hero, the German, takes, knight e3. Magnus looking to fight in the center. Just a completely different game, completely different middle game with, you know, some very slight overlap, but nothing crazy. Knight goes to c4, f6. We have a trade, and I love how this format has not even been hard-coded onto chess.com. The question mark is appearing on an empty square. Like, this is really epic stuff. You know, when they build game review, they built it in a way where the move that you played would get the highlight, except it's thinking that the king is on the previous square. And I'm also asking the same question. So we will need to adapt this, because this is kind of hilarious. Yeah, so castling is a mistake. Yeah, welcome to the wonderful and wacky world of freestyle chess. Now, bishop g4 pinning the queen to the king is also a mistake, apparently. And now black plays f5 and creates counterplay. We have bishop back to h3, putting some pressure. Magnus opens up the position and ultimately sacrifices the rook, right? So rook takes f5, a really, really nice idea. My voice is shot, so I'm not going to be screaming it, but rook f5 is a nice idea. Queen f5, there's this. And if you do this, which is a nice little idea, you just take it and you have an extra pawn. And we walk the king to the edge of the board. Now we bring the queen. We're going to bring the bishop and the rook as well. Excellent coordination. Okay, taking a free pawn is a mistake, but you know, you can slowly start bringing the rook. And what I have noticed is when Vincent is in a time trouble against Magnus, it doesn't go well for him somehow. It's just like it's like a nerves thing. And Magnus here playing a really nice move. He gives up a pawn with a check, but it doesn't really matter. Like, it doesn't actually do anything. Rook e1, you trade, and Magnus is just winning. He's going to try to go to an endgame, and even if this was not necessarily the best move, queen h5, queen f5 or something was a little bit better, he's going to trade, infiltrate, and he just brings the boys to the 8th rank, and queen a8 is checkmate. So he improves his position a little bit, trades the queens, and he just has 2 passed pawns. Like, you're not going to beat Magnus in an endgame of rook and bishop with 2 extra pawns. Very nice game from Magnus. Good converting technique, and he pushes the pawn. Just don't blunder, checkmate. In a shocking turn of events, he does not. Rook h8, bishop e5, both win the game. You're going to queen, and a nice win for him. Vincent started slowly. He lost 2 out of his first 3, but he lost them to Magnus and Sindarev, so somehow, you know, it's excusable. We'll let him off the hook. Vincent did ultimately, though, get some revenge, and he got it against Nodirbek Abdusattorov, who we will cover. By the way, back to Fedoseev versus Carlsen. Remember how Magnus lost a game in 8 moves? Well, he actually did it twice today. He blundered his queen in 8 moves. Now, keep in mind this is round 4. Up to this point, Fedoseev has lost every game he's played. He's 0-3. I mean, it happens. It happens, you know, to me too, as well, in previous tournaments. Magnus castled his king, and you would think that like bishop takes pawn is a blunder, but it's actually protected. By the way, we have another ghost double question mark, which is just really epic stuff. I have no idea if they're ever going to be able to fix that, because again, the rules of this format have not been coded into Game Review. It's been coded onto chess.com, but Game Review has no idea what's going on. Game Review thinks we've all smoked one, but I can't even unhighlight the rook, by the way. Oh, no, I can. Okay, that was really fascinating. Anyway, this is not the thing that's hanging. It's actually this, which is really brutal. It's a backwards knight move, defending the rook and x-raying the queen to the rook, which cannot be protected. So Magnus loses a queen. Now, admittedly, he gets a rook and a knight for it, and, you know, Fedoseev has to back up. But now there is the threat of bishop takes pawn discover check attacking the rook, so he has to go here. And Fedoseev is just up a queen. And let it be known that even though this man lost 3 games in a row, I would lose the 4th, but he won't. And he just consolidates, trades like almost all the pieces, and I mean, I actually, dare I say, might even be able to win this position against Magnus with white, because now losing with white would be really impressive. Actually more impressive than beating Magnus from this position, I would say. But yeah, this is pretty easy. The way you have to beat a queen is you have to consolidate all your pieces, defend each other, and work really well together. Black can't do any of those things. Black only has one advantage right now, and it's the fact that his name is Magnus, and that's not going to help here because Fedoseev is a really good player. So g6, but just f3, no back rank checkmates. He just pushes all of his pawns. He's going to infiltrate with the queen. Black is not going to be able to defend all his pieces. Magnus just resigns. He just straight up resigns because h6 is coming, queen g7, you can't defend. So crazy. Magnus loses 2 games today in 8 moves. So it seems like he has a new strategy that he has to follow for the next days, which is don't lose in 8 moves. Like that's, I mean, if I was his coach, that's what I would say. We can go for 9, we can go for 7, but seems like 8 is the unlucky number. Twice now, that's what's happened. So he actually starts the day with 2 out of 4. Which, again, you just need to make top 8, ultimately. And I think last year he was 5th or 6th in the round robin, so, you know, but that's the cool thing about this format. We get to see great players do, you know, not necessarily such great things. Caruana versus Firouzja, another new position, something we haven't seen before. So in formats like this, with queens and bishops in the corner, you will oftentimes see moves like c4 and b4 played really early, because you have to activate the queen. If you don't play c4, you might bring the queen out like this, but generally, you know, these are the things that we need to follow. Well, that's what happens. c4, c5, both pieces are activated, and a break in the center. Kind of see how we're like adapting things we've learned so far. First of all, rook in the center generally means that you can play d4. Knight like this will support, and you know, you're going to open up the pieces like this. So pawn takes, knight takes, like everything is normal as I've described. Queen and bishop are being activated. Everything is nice. Both guys castle. They couldn't castle on the first move. They actually had to move the knight. I don't know if you were tracking that, right? But so we have development, knight f5, bishop d7, and look at this move. Rook takes d5. I would yell sacrifice the rook, but that's not a sacrifice. If this, queen takes g7, right? So that's that doesn't work. Instead, we have bishop takes f5, and now we play rook f5, and white just has a 1-pawn advantage. And not only does white have a 1-pawn advantage, he has 2 bishops. So he has a very good position. Now, will Fabiano cruise to a victory? Well, let's see. Fedoseev cruised to a victory, but he had an extra queen. It's not quite the same thing. The answer is no. Fabiano will not cruise to a victory because despite being a full pawn down, Alireza plants all his pieces in the center of the board and begins to launch a really vicious counterattack. And Fabiano also has 40 seconds. In like 15 moves, Fabiano has 40 seconds on the clock remaining, which is ridiculous. And now we have knight takes h2, Alireza crashing into the white position, and then he plays this move rook f3, which is, it's given a question mark, but it's a really awesome move. Point is, you can't take it, because you lose the defense of these squares, rook h6 and queen g4 and queen h3, and the game is just over. I really like the move rook f3, the engine hates it, but I'm better than the computer, so we can just take my opinion. Rook h1, queen g4, look at this. I mean, queen f1, unbelievable defending here. King g1, look at this. This is a bunker of pieces. King g1, queen f1, rook h1, rook h2, barely defending yourself. Like, this is... And Alireza here is like, how the hell do I not have a checkmate? And he doesn't. He doesn't have a checkmate at all. I mean, this I've never seen something like this concoction. And like, question is, how do you get out of this? Well, you just start, attacking with your pawn. Just pawn on the other side of the board, which is threatening to become a queen. Black is going to have to defend himself. And Fabiano wins one of the most impressive defensive games I've ever seen, and he finishes it off with a fork. Fabiano was in incredible form. And that's really crazy to say because he just played the worst tournament of like the last 5 years for him. He's coming off the tournament in Tata Steel where he lost a bunch of rating points. So you would think like maybe confidence a shot. No, not for Fabiano, who I actually saw in the gym this morning. He was bicep curling like 40-pound dumbbells. Everything is in kg here. I may or may not be lying, but yeah, he was whatever the highest weight was. I mean, he was curling it, and he looked fantastic. I wasn't looking too long, but yeah, he looked great. So he's obviously in great form, and working out in the gym every morning, and we're rooting for him. If you're not a Fabiano fan, I don't know, you're not a fan of chess. By the way, Nodirbek Abdusattorov, Vladimir Fedoseev. This was another very exciting game. Nodirbek had a rough start. He had some draws. They were really, really long games, but ultimately he found some rhythm after a loss to Vincent Keimer. Nodirbek is a fighter. I mean, he's always looking for imbalance, always looking to create complications. And I think this was the game also after Fedoseev beat Magnus. So, I mean, after you beat Magnus and trap his queen in 8 moves, I'm sure you're full of confidence. The problem is, look at this. He loses all his pawns on that side of the board, and he castles his king, so now Fedoseev has nothing. Fedoseev spent the entire opening marching a pawn, taking everything, and it's not even good, and here comes a counterattack. And this is what sometimes happens in this format. You just get caught with your pants down, which I guess would violate the dress code of the tournament, but who knows? I don't know. Maybe it's freestyle. Maybe there is no dress code. So the knight goes back to c7, knight f5, rook a2, and Nodirbek is just up material. He's down material, but he has a massive lead in development. Fedoseev's king is in the center. Fedoseev will have to move his queen to castle, and I'm not sure he's going to have any time to do that because here comes bishop b6 check, a trade, and the knight is planted firmly on d6. Total positional domination. Beautiful game from Nodirbek. Absolutely no moves for black, and rook e1 seals the escape, locks in the position, and the game is over, because your next moves are just to remove the defenders and ultimately win the game. Actually, what's really epic here is that the top computer move is king h1. And the reason it's king h1 is you just advance your pieces forward. So basically, you play a move like h3, and black runs out of moves. This is actually one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen in my life. h3 is the best move here. Black plays h4. You play king h2. Black plays g5. You play f takes g5 or f5. Black plays g4. You just take it. Black goes here. You can just take that too, and black can't move. Black can't move this, or this, or this. I mean, imagine just having to run all of your pawns forward, lose them to your opponent. Like, this is Nodirbek after losing a game, right? And we ended the day with 2 really awesome games. These were heart attack games. This was a game between Gukesh and Hikaru where both of their accuracies were below 80, looking like me in biology class. 78.9 for Gukesh and 77.8 for Hikaru. And then we had Carlsen Sindarov, by the way. Remember, Sindarov, the superstar of the day. So Gukesh versus Hikaru was pandemonium from the beginning. All right, both guys making early mistakes, again, according to whatever computer is backseating this game. And then it was a4, a5. So it was Gukesh advancing on the queen side and in the center of the board. We got a capture, and you're going to watch something really awesome here. We have a trade, bishop e3, and Hikaru's like, all right, we're both castling. You castled, I castled. That's life. That's what's going on. Yeah, except the position is not innocuous. I mean, there is actually something really, really dangerous here, and Gukesh spots it. He sacrifices his bishop. Bishop takes c5 is an amazing move. He gives away the bishop, and all that's happening, there is no immediate attack, no immediate nothing. He's just standing outside of Hikaru's hotel room with a hammer. I mean, that's basically, he's just waiting for him to exit so he can hit him over the head with it. It's kind of like Mafia style, And Hikaru, turns out, is not in the hotel room. Big plot twist, he's on vacation somewhere else. So Hikaru now has to come over here and defend himself. And I mean, you just never see anything like this. It's just 2 bishops. Like, he just has to bulldoze down this position and win the game. So Hikaru's trying to bring his queen over to help. Gukesh plays e6, an amazing move, just sealing off the queen because the bishop on a2, naturally, which came from this square, is protecting it, right? Now we have king b8, and now Gukesh is winning if and only if he finds a6, deflecting the bishop, queen b4 check, and then knight to e5, bringing in the pieces like this, and then obviously, your rooks are coming next. Instead of that, he plays knight e5 first, and he blunders that after this, there is this move. And, the funny thing is, he probably was like, well, this is still benefiting me, but it's not, because now black is just in time with queen e8, and black is just in time with this, and Hikaru's winning. because Gukesh gave him a knight. Now, or he actually gave him a bishop, but now, the knight is still here. So now Hikaru's winning. Gukesh plays rook d3. By the way, Gukesh has, what is that, like 14 seconds on the clock or whatever the time is. I guess the time is frozen for some reason. But, okay, they both obviously have low time. Hikaru goes for counterplay. Rook c3 from Gukesh. And I mean, Hikaru's just up a knight. Like, at the end of the day, dude's just up a knight, right? He can play knight g6, and now he can play d5. Obviously, I mean, I'm not saying I would play d5, but the point is get this pawn and then just bring your pieces. The only thing that's, a little bit weak of Black's position is the king. And now they get into a time scramble. Hikaru plays king b8. That's apparently a mistake. Rook d1. Queen goes to c6. That's apparently a mistake. Queen goes to the corner. That's apparently a mistake. Now Gukesh is winning if he plays queen a4, because obviously, like, how do you guys not know that? I have no idea why. Rook d4. Okay, now Hikaru is again blundering and is completely lost because of rook c6, rook c6, rook c6, queen b4, right? You just block. Queen a4, I'm getting in. Rook c6, there is queen b5, and then you do get in. And that is why you are winning here. So rook c6, Hikaru's losing because of some menacing attack. Gukesh doesn't see it, and now we trade the rooks, and we have the same exact position that arises, except now Hikaru is blocking Gukesh out of his position, so the players repeat moves and ultimately make a draw, and both of them were unhappy. And yeah, that's chess. Nobody's happy in the end. Last but not least, I will show you Carlsen versus Sindarov. No, Magnus did not lose this game in 8 moves. He actually lost it in 5. No, I'm just kidding. Let's compare openings, by the way, to the previous one. So in this game, we had whatever this is, right? We had a knight, we had F and E like this, and here we have, I mean, both guys went A4 with A5 was played by Sindarov, and obviously Magnus is going to go for this. And Magnus did have a nice position, but Sindarov puts the bishop on a nice square, and then he keeps pressuring the center, and he gets this nice outpost for his knight, right? He plays bishop e8 and puts the knight like this, and knight e5. And he had a nice position from the opening. He had an outpost. His knight was not able to be removed from the center, and Magnus sort of struggled to get his pieces out. This is what normally happens in this format. One side gets their pieces out faster than the other side, and it's really, really hard to catch up. Knight on d5, rook takes, and Sindarov just starts launching an attack. Magnus has to play defense. Queen e4, and let's not forget Black can still castle. And he will. There it is. The 23rd move, castle, the third icon of this recap in the corner of the board. Now it's a blue exclamation mark, meaning, great move. And yeah, because Magnus spent such a long time getting his pieces out, even though he's a pawn up, he's much worse. He's much worse because this is a weakness, this is a weakness, this is a weakness. All his pieces are weaknesses, and there is g4 at the end of the day. So bishop back to c2, and Javahir Sindarov ends day 1 by beating Magnus Carlsen, by playing queen d4 and threatening an unstoppable either checkmate or winning of the queen. This is like, I mean, Sindarov played today like the hydraulic press. Like he destroyed his opponents. I cannot understate. And we will check the standings. I think the total count for the day was 11 wins for White and 6 wins for Black. So White did win more. I think at some point it was like 9-2. It was actually really, really lopsided. But day 1 of the entire tour of the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam Tour ends with the following results. Fabiano Caruana and Sindarov are in first place with 4.5. Both of them. Caruana and Sindarov, like, incredible. Firouzja with 3.5, Nodirbek with 2.5, which is nuts because he actually had a pretty slow day to start, all things considered. We have a big tie with 2, Carlsen, Gukesh, Hikaru, and Keimer. So what's interesting is that if it ended now, Fedoseev and Levon are eliminated. You have Vincent, Hikaru, Gukesh, Magnus. I don't exactly know what the tiebreak order is because all the tiebreaks are determined slightly differently. And I believe the rules of the round robin are that the top 3 players choose their opponents. So Fabiano gets to choose who he plays. Javahir then chooses. Alireza then chooses. It's kind of interesting. Unfortunately, these are not the final seedings. Or fortunately, depending on who you're rooting for. We have 4 more games to go tomorrow, starting with Fedoseev versus Firouzja. He can try to make a comeback. Carlsen versus Nodirbek. Fabiano, Gukesh. Javahir Sindarov versus Hikaru Nakamura, which you can kind of see there, although it's slightly cut off. And last but not least, I will leave you with food for thought. The players themselves, before the tournament started, had a technical meeting like happens in all tournaments, and they actually voted that the 8th place spot, if it is a tie between 8th, 9th, 10th, for example, have to play a playoff. So it's not going to be determined who is the 8th seed in the event of a tie with 9 and 10 on tie breaks. They will play a playoff. Why? Because if you get eliminated from the tournament, that really sucks. But if you qualify in 8th, you can win $200,000, which is first. So the players actually decided this rule amongst themselves. They voted. It was pretty cool. Tournament is, being called for the players, by the players, for the players, etc. Yeah, day one is in the books. I mean, crazy stuff, just ridiculous games, no openings. I feel like I'm watching those fight scenes from the Sherlock Holmes movies. Just like in a bar, like in a staircase, like dudes just throwing down insane amount of decisive results. And it kind of feels like Fight Club a little bit. So, I mean, I don't know if this in any way, shape, or form like takes precedence versus like the established, the established, classical format with the 99% accuracy games, but it's a lot of fun. So that's day one. It's in the books, and I'm uploading content on Instagram. I'm uploading YouTube shorts. I'm uploading all sorts of stuff. Yeah, I'll see you all for tomorrow's round robin and the final seeding. So that's all I've got for you today. Get out of here.